You're
This
gonna sit
black
down
woman
one
thinks
way or
her
another.
fancy suit means something,
Get those
sitting
things
there
away
like
from
she's
me.
better than
Let
everyone
go
in
of
this
me right
building.
now.
Officer Hayes circles her in Riverside County's holding cell. Cuffed, business suit, natural hair, everything he hates about uppity black professionals. You
What's
people
wrong?
always
Don't
act
like what you
entitled,
see.
Hayes tells Cruz. Let's have some fun with
Get
this
that out of
one.
my face right now.
She speaks, calm, educated. I have the right. You have the right to shut up. He grabs clippers. This is my jail. Cruz holds her down. The clippers roar. Her hair falls. Black, natural, gone. He's grinning. She's trembling but memorizes. Badge 22834. Hayes. Every word. 6 weeks later, Hayes walks into courtroom 4B. The judge looks up. Bald. Black. Same woman. Officer Hayes. We meet again. His blood freezes. The black woman he humiliated for fun? Federal judge. His name just hit her criminal docket. 3 cops are about to learn what happens when you destroy the wrong black woman. Faith Sullivan wakes at 5:45. No alarm. 20 years of discipline have made her body its own timekeeper. The house is quiet in that particular way early mornings are, before the city remembers how to be loud. She moves through the routine, shower, coffee, the deliberate ritual of getting dressed for work. The kitchen table holds evidence of 2 lives. On one side, her daughter Maya's algebra homework, unfinished. On the other, case files Faith brought home, though she knows she shouldn't. The line between work and life has always been thin for her. Public defender for 12 years, judge for the past 8 months. The weight of both still sits on her shoulders. She pours coffee into a mug that says, "World's okayest mom." Maya's gift last Christmas, delivered with a teenager's particular brand of affection. The morning paper lies folded next to the sink. She opens it while the coffee cools. The headline catches her eye. Officer cleared in fatal shooting of unarmed teen. She reads the article twice. Grand jury declined to indict. Family devastated. Department spokesperson quoted, "The officer followed protocol and feared for his life." The victim's name, Terrence Walker, 17, gets 2 paragraphs. The officer's record, including 3 prior complaints, gets 1 sentence buried near the end. Faith thinks, who holds them accountable? The question isn't new. She's been asking it since her public defender days, watching officers testify with confidence that rarely matched the evidence. She's been asking it since her first month on the bench, when she realized how much power comes with the black robe, and how easily that power can be ignored if you're not vigilant. She glances at the clock. 7:15. Maya should be up. Faith moves to the stairs, calls her daughter's name. The response is predictable. A groan, followed by 5 more minutes. Now please, you have a test. Another groan, but Faith hears movement. Small victories. Small. By 7:45, they're both ready. Maya, tall and self-conscious about it, slouches in the passenger seat as Faith drives. They don't talk much in the mornings. Maya's not a morning person, never has been. But Faith cherishes these quiet moments. 16 years old. Soon she'll have her own car, her own life. The mother-daughter commutes will become memory. Faith drops her at school. Love you. See you at dinner. Love you too, Mom. Maya grabs her backpack, disappears into the crowd of teenagers flooding toward the entrance. Faith watches for a moment longer than necessary. Then she shifts into drive and heads toward the courthouse. The route is familiar. 8 miles, 16 minutes if traffic cooperates. She's driven it every working day for 8 months. Judge Faith Sullivan, Riverside County Circuit Court, Courtroom 4B. The name still feels surreal sometimes. She remembers being 25, fresh out of law school, full of ideas about justice. She remembers her first client, a kid arrested for matching a description. Took her 6 months to get the charges dropped. 6 months of a child caught in the machinery. That's why she became a judge. Not for power, for precision, for the chance to make sure the machinery works the way it's supposed to. She doesn't know that in 12 hours, she'll be sitting in a cell just like the ones she's read about in case files. She doesn't know that everything she believes about justice is about to be tested in a way she never imagined. It's the last normal thing she'll say for 6 weeks. The traffic light turns yellow. Faith slows, stops. She's 2 miles from the courthouse. The radio plays NPR, something about infrastructure bills. She's half listening, thinking about her docket. 3 arraignments, a motion to suppress, a sentencing. Tuesday mornings are always heavy. Red and blue lights flash in her rearview mirror. Her hands tighten on the wheel. That old reflex. The one that kicks in regardless of how many degrees you have, regardless of the title on your business card. She signals, pulls to the shoulder, puts the car in park. Hands at 10 and 2, visible. The officer approaches from the driver's side. White male, mid-30s, fit. His badge catches the morning sun, 8:34. Hayes, according to the nameplate. He stands a step back from her window, hand resting near his belt. License and registration. Faith reaches slowly for her purse. May I ask why I was stopped, officer? Your taillight's out. She knows it's not. She had the car serviced 3 days ago, but she hands over her documents without argument. You learn as a black woman in America, which battles to fight and when. Hayes examines her license, takes longer than necessary, looks at her face, then back at the license, then at her face again. Step out of the vehicle. Is there a problem? Step out of the vehicle, ma'am. His tone has shifted. Not quite hostile, but close. Faith unbuckles her seatbelt, opens the door, steps onto the shoulder, traffic rushing past on her left. The morning is warm already, sun climbing toward uncomfortable. Place your hands on the hood. Officer Hayes, I don't understand what... Don't make this difficult. His hand moves to his belt, not his gun, but close enough to signal threat. Faith puts her hands on the hood, metal warm under her palms. She can feel her heart rate climbing, but keeps her voice level. I'm cooperating fully. I'd like to know what I'm being accused of. Hayes runs his hands along her sides, a pat-down that feels more like theater than procedure. Another officer has arrived. Cruz, according to his nameplate. Older, 40-something, standing back with arms crossed. Ma'am, have you been drinking? No. I'm going to need you to submit to a field sobriety test. I haven't been drinking. I'm on my way to work. And where's that? The courthouse. Hayes and Cruz exchange a look. Something passes between them. Not quite amusement, but close. You a lawyer? Faith doesn't answer. Her attorney's instinct says, give them nothing they don't specifically ask for. But her human instinct says this is already going sideways. Hayes calls something in on his radio. Faith can't make out all of it, but she hears, possible DUI, uncooperative. She hasn't been uncooperative. She's been textbook compliant. But she knows how this works. She's defended enough clients to understand that uncooperative is code for I didn't like her attitude. 10 minutes pass. Hayes makes her walk a line, touch her nose, follow his finger with her eyes. She passes every test because she's completely sober. But when she asks if she's free to go, Hayes shakes his head. I'm placing you under arrest for resisting an officer and obstruction. I haven't resisted anything. The handcuffs are cold, metal biting into her wrists as Hayes pulls her arms behind her back. Too tight, deliberately so. She thinks about the dash cam, the one she noticed on Hayes's patrol car. At least there's a record. At least someone will be able to see this for what it is, a pretextual stop, an escalation without cause, an arrest built on lies. She doesn't resist, doesn't argue, just memorizes. Badge 2834, unit number. The time on the dashboard clock, 8:34. The intersection, Riverside and Main. Everything. Cruz opens the back door of the patrol car. Hayes guides her inside, not gently, but not rough enough to leave marks. The door slams. Through the metal grate, she can see them talking. Hayes is smiling. She's on the ground metaphorically, but her mind is working. Building the case. Documentation. Timeline. Witnesses. There must have been other drivers. The dash cam footage. What she doesn't know yet is that documentation only matters if someone's willing to look at it. And in 18 minutes, the cameras will mysteriously stop recording. The booking room at Riverside County Police Department smells like industrial cleaner and old coffee. Faith has been in rooms like this before, on the other side representing clients, experiencing it as the person in handcuffs changes everything. Hayes logs her into the system. 1847. Faith commits it to memory. Her personal items go into a manila envelope. Wallet, phone, watch, wedding ring she still wears 2 years after divorce. The intake officer is professional, bored. Any medical conditions? No. Medications? No. Hayes stands to the side, arms crossed. When the intake officer steps away, he leans in. You should have been more cooperative. Faith doesn't respond. Engaging will only make this worse. A third officer appears. Watson, according to his nameplate. Young, late 20s. He looks uncomfortable, shifting his weight. His body cam is clipped to his vest, the small red light indicating it's recording. We're moving her to holding, Hayes says. They walk her down a corridor. Concrete floors, fluorescent lights, footsteps echoing. The holding cell is small, 8 by 10, metal bench bolted to the wall, toilet in the corner with no privacy. 2 other women are already there, both sleeping or pretending to. Take a seat, Cruz says. He's appeared again, apparently still on shift. Faith sits. The metal is cold through her clothes. The 3 officers step into the hallway just outside. They think they're speaking quietly, but the acoustics carry their voices. Faith hears fragments. Standard protocol. Need to check. Then Hayes, clearer. Let's have some fun with this one. Cruz laughs. Low, conspiratorial. Watson says nothing. Faith keeps her face neutral, but she's memorizing. Every word, every tone. The way Hayes said fun like this is entertainment. They come back in, all 3 of them. That's unusual. Holding cells don't require 3 officers unless there's a threat. Faith is 5'6", 130 pounds, handcuffed, completely compliant. Hayes is holding electric clippers. Department policy, he says. Lice protocol. We've had an outbreak. Faith knows this is a lie. There's no lice protocol that involves forcibly shaving heads. But she also knows that arguing will be used as further evidence of uncooperative behavior. That's not necessary, she says quietly. It's policy. Cruz moves to hold her shoulders. Watson stands at the door, body cam still recording. Faith can see the red light. She makes a point of looking directly at it. If they're going to humiliate her, at least there will be a record. The sound starts. Mechanical, rhythmic, cold. The clippers move across her scalp in efficient strokes. Hair falls. Short, natural hair she's worn for 3 years since she stopped straightening it. Each pass removes another piece of the image she presents to the world. Hayes is smiling. Not broadly, but enough. Cruz mutters something that sounds like approval. Watson says nothing, but he doesn't leave, doesn't object, doesn't stop recording. Faith keeps her eyes open, focused on the body cam, memorizing. Badge numbers, 2D834, 4156, 2903. Names, Hayes, Cruz, Watson. Time, approximately 1900 hours. Every detail, including what Hayes said in the hallway. Let's have some fun. She heard it. She's a witness to her own degradation. There, Hayes says when he's done. Clean. He offers her a small mirror. She doesn't look at it. Doesn't give him the satisfaction. All better now, Cruz adds, laughter in his voice. They leave. The door closes. The lock clicks. Faith sits. Her head feels strange, exposed, cold. The other two women in the cell are watching. The older one, Hispanic, speaks softly. Lo siento. It's not your fault. They did the same to me. 2 months ago, said it was lice. There was no lice. Faith looks at her. Did you file a complaint? The woman laughs, bitter, tired. You think they care? The second woman, younger, black, nods. I filed one. Nothing happened. Faith thinks about the body cam. Watson's body cam, still recording when they came in. That's the difference. That's documentation that matters. Audio captures everything, including Hayes saying, "Let's have some fun," before they walked in. At 21:15, they let her make her phone call. Not to Maya. She can't explain this to her daughter. Not yet. She calls Jacob, a colleague from her public defender days who now does civil rights litigation. Jacob? It's Faith Sullivan. Faith? What's wrong? I need you to do something for me. Document everything. I'll wait. She doesn't explain, doesn't elaborate, just gives him the booking number, the officers' names, the time, everything she's memorized, including the quote, "Let's have some fun." She repeats it exactly as Hayes said it. When she hangs up, she sits back down on the metal bench. Her head is cold. Her wrists hurt where the handcuffs bit in. But her mind is clear. They think this is over. They think she's just another woman they can humiliate, another complaint that will disappear into the blue wall of silence. They don't know who she is. They don't know what she's capable of. They don't know that documentation is her specialty, that building cases is what she does, that patience is a tool she's mastered over 20 years in courtrooms. They said, "Let's have some fun." They thought no one would remember. They thought no one would care. They thought the cameras would be off, the witnesses wouldn't matter, the complaint would go nowhere like all the others before it. But Faith Sullivan isn't like the others, not because she's better or stronger, because she has something they didn't, a courtroom, a gavel, authority they can't ignore even when they want to. They just don't know it yet. At 600 hours, they release her. No charges filed, no explanation given, just a manila envelope with her belongings and a form to sign acknowledging their return. The desk sergeant is different from the night shift, a woman in her 50s who won't meet Faith's eyes. "You're free to go." Faith signs, takes her things. Her fingers find her phone first. 17 missed calls, a dozen texts. Maya, Jacob, the court administrator. She doesn't respond to any of them yet. She walks out of the police station into early morning light. The air is cool, clean after the recycled atmosphere of the holding cell. Her car is still at the impound lot. She'll deal with that later. For now, she calls a ride share. The driver is a young man who tries to make conversation, then wisely stops when Faith doesn't respond. She rides in silence, one hand touching her head, still strange, still exposed. She left the courthouse yesterday morning as one person. She's returning as another, but not to the courthouse, not yet. First, home. Maya is awake, frantic. "Mom, where were you? I called and called." "I'm okay." Faith pulls her daughter into a hug, holds on longer than usual. Maya's hands find her mother's head, pull back in shock. "Mom, what?" "I'll explain later. I promise. But I need you to trust me right now. Can you do that?" Maya nods, eyes wide, scared in a way that makes Faith's heart crack. 16 years old, still young enough to believe her mother can fix anything, old enough to sense when something is very, very wrong. "Stay home today. I'll call the school. I need to go to work." "Mom." "I need to go to work," Faith repeats. Her voice is steady, certain. This is important. Today, of all days, she needs to be exactly where she's supposed to be. She showers, changes into the clothes she wears for court, Black suit, white blouse, low heels, professional, authoritative. The armor she's built over 20 years of practicing law. She wraps a dark scarf around her head. Not hiding exactly, but the reveal needs to happen on her terms. At 8:15, she's in her car. At 8:26, she's parking in the courthouse garage. At 8:28, she's walking through security. The officers know her, wave her through. If they notice the scarf, they don't comment. Her chambers are on the 3rd floor. She moves through the routine, hang up her coat, review the docket, check emails. At 8:29, she removes the scarf, looks at herself in the small mirror she keeps in her desk drawer. The woman looking back is familiar and strange. Same eyes, same jaw. But the absence of hair changes everything, makes her look harder, older, more vulnerable. She thinks about the women in the holding cell, the ones who told her, "They did it to us too." At 8:30, her bailiff knocks. "Your Honor, we're ready." Faith stands, puts on her robe, black, heavy with symbolism and authority. The weight of it settles on her shoulders like a reminder. She opens the door. "Good morning, Your Honor." Her bailiff, Thomas, has worked with her since she was appointed. He notices the hair immediately. His eyes widen, but he's professional enough not to comment. "Good morning, Thomas. Let's begin." She walks into courtroom 4B. The bench sits elevated, commanding. She's presided from this seat for 8 months. Today it feels different. Today it feels like a fortress. "All rise." The room stands. Lawyers, defendants, family members in the gallery, and in the back row, waiting to testify in an unrelated case, Officer Garrett Hayes, badge 2834. Their eyes meet. His face goes pale. Recognition. Then shock. Then something like fear. She watches him process it. The woman from last night. The one they humiliated. The one whose head they shaved while laughing. She's not just some random black woman they can abuse and forget. She's the judge. Faith sits, picks up her gavel. Her voice is steady, neutral, exactly as calm as it was yesterday morning. "Please be seated. We'll begin with arraignments." She doesn't look at Hayes again. Not yet. She has work to do. And time is something she knows how to use. Faith doesn't go home that night until after 7. She presides over her docket with the same precision she always does, maybe more. Each case gets her full attention. Each defendant gets fairness. This is what she does. This is who she is. What happened last night doesn't change that. But when court adjourns, she makes 3 calls. The first is to Dr. Helen Carter, the county medical examiner. They've worked together on cases before. Faith trusts her competence and her discretion. "Dr. Carter, Faith Sullivan. I need a forensic examination." They meet at Carter's office at 8 that evening. The examination is thorough, clinical. Photographs from multiple angles. Measurements of the abrasions on Faith's scalp where the clippers pressed too hard. Documentation of the psychological distress. Carter asks questions about sleep, appetite, emotional state. Faith answers honestly. She hasn't slept. She can't eat. She keeps touching her head, feeling the absence. "This wasn't medically necessary," Carter says quietly. It's not a question. "No." "I'll have the report ready tomorrow." The second call is to Detective Sarah Brennan, Internal Affairs. Faith has seen Brennan testify before. Sharp, thorough, someone who actually seems to believe that police accountability matters. They've never spoken outside of court. "Detective Brennan, this is Judge Sullivan. I need to file a formal complaint." They meet at a coffee shop, neutral ground. Brennan listens without interrupting as Faith walks through the timeline. The pretextual stop, the arrest without cause, the humiliation in the holding cell. Badge numbers, names, times, every detail Faith memorized. "I want to be clear," Brennan says when Faith finishes. "I believe you, but you need to understand what you're up against. The department protects its own. Always has. Then we change that. With respect, Your Honor. People have tried. Then we try harder. Brennan studies her for a long moment, then nods. I'll open a case file. Internal Affairs Complaint Number 2023-0891. I'll need your formal statement, Dr. Carter's report, and anything else you can provide. I'll have everything to you by Friday. The third call is to Graham Ellis, investigative reporter for the Riverside Chronicle. Ellis has covered police misconduct for 3 years. Faith has read his work, admired his tenacity. He answers on the second ring. Judge Sullivan, I heard about your arrest. I was going to call you. How did you hear? Police scanners. I monitor them. When I saw your name in the booking log, I knew something was off. They meet at his office, cluttered, papers everywhere, the organized chaos of someone who lives in information. Ellis already has a file started. Traffic stop records, Hayes's service history, complaint logs. Officer Garrett Hayes, Ellis says, pulling up documents on his computer. 14 years with RCPD. 6 complaints filed against him. Want to guess how many resulted in discipline? 0. Correct. Complaint number 1, 2011, excessive force during a traffic stop. Black male, age 23, resolved, insufficient evidence. Complaint number 2, 2013, racial profiling. Hispanic female, age 31. Resolved, he said, she said. Complaint number 3, let me guess, same pattern. Ellis nods. All the way through complaint number 6, filed last year. African-American male, age 42, alleged Hayes used a racial slur and physically intimidated him during a traffic stop. Resolved, lack of corroborating evidence. Faith thinks about the women in the holding cell, the ones who said they did it to us too. The lice protocol, she says. How many others? Ellis types, pulls up more documents. I've been tracking this. In the past 3 years, RCPD has documented 11 cases of mandatory lice protocol in holding. Want to know something interesting? 10 of the 11 were women of color. 0 medical documentation of actual lice infestation. Now you might be thinking, can one person really take on an entire system? Stay with this, because what Faith does next isn't about rage, it's about receipts, and she's just getting started. The documentation continues. Faith requests the dashcam footage through her attorney, official channels, formal requests, everything by the book. The footage arrives 3 days later. It shows exactly what she remembers: a lawful stop, complete compliance, escalation without provocation. Hayes's voice saying, uncooperative, while the video shows Faith doing everything he asks. The cell camera footage is more complicated. When Jacob files the formal request, the response is careful, legalistic. Due to technical difficulties, footage from holding cell 3B on July 18, 2023, is unavailable for the time period 1852 to 1910 hours. 18 minutes. Exactly the 18 minutes when 3 officers entered her cell with clippers. The metadata tells a different story. Brennan obtains the DVR logs. They show the recording system was functioning normally before 1852 and after 1910. The gap is precise, surgical. Someone stopped the recording. Someone restarted it. Someone thought 18 minutes was enough time to do what they wanted without leaving evidence. But they made a mistake. Detective Brennan finds the 2 women who were in the cell that night. Inmates 4482 and 4489. Both are willing to provide affidavits. Both describe hearing clippers, laughter, Faith's single question, "Why are you doing this?" Both describe the officers leaving satisfied, job done. Faith reviews Hayes's personnel file, 68 pages of service records, commendations, complaints. Most of it is mundane, shift schedules, training certifications, performance reviews, but buried in the complaints section, a pattern emerges. 6 complaints, 14 years, 0 discipline. The math doesn't work unless someone is protecting him. Graham Ellis finds the money trail. California public records law requires disclosure of legal settlements above a certain threshold, but departments often seal the records through court orders. Ellis is good at finding leaks. He publishes his first article on Friday, Pattern of Abuse, Why RCPD Protects Its Own. The article names Hayes, Cruz, two other officers with similar complaint histories. It details the settlements, 2 in the past 4 years, both sealed. Ellis couldn't get the exact amounts, but sources familiar with the cases estimate $85,000 and $120,000. Both involved excessive force. Both were settled quietly, non-disclosure agreements signed, victims paid to disappear. Faith reads the article 3 times. Each time, her resolve hardens. This isn't about her anymore, if it ever was. This is about a system that has brutalized people for years and faced no consequences. This is about changing that. Then the pushback begins. On Tuesday, the police union releases a statement. It's not subtle. Recent allegations against RCPD officers appear retaliatory and baseless. We stand behind our members and their commitment to public safety. On Wednesday, Police Chief Raymond Clark sends Faith a formal letter, delivered by courier. In the interest of impartiality and public confidence in our judicial system, I respectfully request Your Honor consider recusing from any future cases involving RCPD personnel. On Thursday, a rival newspaper, one known for being police-friendly, publishes an op-ed. Judge or vigilante, Sullivan's vendetta raises questions about judicial impartiality. Faith reads them all, says nothing publicly. But privately, she's building the case the way she's built hundreds of cases. Documentation, corroboration, evidence that can't be dismissed as, he said, she said. She doesn't know it yet, but Detective Brennan is about to find something that changes everything. The pressure campaign is systematic, professional, clearly coordinated. On Friday morning, Faith arrives at the courthouse to find news cameras waiting. A reporter shoves a microphone in her direction. Your Honor, is it true you're pursuing a personal vendetta against RCPD officers? She doesn't answer. Walks past them with the same composed expression she uses on the bench. But inside, she's calculating. Someone leaked the internal affairs complaint number. Someone wants this fight to be public before she's ready. The union's next statement is more aggressive. Judge Faith Sullivan has demonstrated clear bias against law enforcement. Her baseless accusations against Officer Hayes and his colleagues represent an abuse of judicial authority. We call for a formal investigation into her conduct and immediate recusal from all cases involving police officers. Union Rep Jerry Brooks appears on local television that evening. His message is carefully crafted, reasonable sounding. Officer Hayes followed standard booking procedures. This manufactured crisis is coming from someone who seems to have a fundamental disrespect for the men and women who risk their lives every day to keep this community safe. Faith watches the interview from her chambers. Brooks is good. He doesn't attack her directly, just questions her motives, plants seeds of doubt. The implication is clear. Activist judge with an agenda, officers just doing their jobs. Chief Clark issues his own statement. While I cannot comment on pending investigations, I want to assure the community that we trust the independent investigative process and stand by the integrity of our officers. It's all careful language. Independent investigative process, as if internal affairs isn't part of the same department. Integrity of our officers, as if 6 complaints and 2 sealed settlements don't exist. The media coverage splits along predictable lines. Ellis and the Chronicle continue documenting the pattern. Other outlets focus on the controversy, treating both sides as equally credible. Cable news picks it up. Judge versus cops, who's really the victim? Faith's colleagues at the courthouse are supportive but cautious. Over lunch, Judge Patricia Morrison, 15 years on the bench, mentor to Faith when she first got appointed, offers quiet advice. You're in the right. Everyone knows you're in the right. But being right doesn't always mean you win. The system protects itself. It always has. Then maybe it's time the system changed. Morrison sighs. I admire your conviction. I really do. But you need to be realistic about what you're up against. These are people with power, resources, and no accountability. They will make your life miserable. They will question every ruling you make. They will turn you into the issue instead of their own misconduct. Let them try. But the real blow comes on Monday. Maya comes home from school crying. Faith knows immediately something is wrong. Her daughter rarely cries, inherited that stoicism from her mother. Baby, what happened? They're saying things, the other kids. They're saying you hate cops. They're saying you're making it up for attention. Someone's dad is RCPD and he told everyone you're lying. Faith holds her daughter, feels Maya's body shake with sobs. This is the cost. This is what fighting back means. Your child gets hurt because you refused to stay quiet. I'm not lying, Faith says quietly. You know that, right? I know, but they don't care. They just keep saying it. That night, Faith sits alone in her chambers long after everyone else has gone home. The building is silent except for the hum of fluorescent lights and the occasional creak of old wood settling. Her black robe hangs on the door, symbol of authority, promise of fairness, weight of responsibility. She could walk away, file her complaint, let internal affairs handle it, move on with her life. No one would blame her. Morrison is right. Being right doesn't always mean you win. But she thinks about the women in the holding cell. The ones who said, I filed a complaint, nothing happened. She thinks about the 6 other people who complained about Hayes and got nowhere. She thinks about the 2 victims who took settlements and disappeared into non-disclosure agreements, silenced by money they probably desperately needed. She thinks about Jamal, the 15-year-old she defended when she was a public defender, arrested for matching a description, 6 months of his life stolen by a system that didn't look close enough. That's why she became a judge, not for power, for precision, for the chance to make sure the system works the way it's supposed to. She's not walking away. At 11:15, she types a formal memo to the Judicial Council. I respectfully request an independent review of the events of July 18, 2023, including examination of all available evidence and the personnel records of Officers Hayes, Cruz, and Watson. I further request that this review be conducted by an external body to ensure impartiality. She hits send. No going back now. Her phone buzzes. Text from Brennan. Call me when you can. Found something. Faith calls immediately. Brennan's voice is tight with something. Excitement, maybe, or vindication. I've been going through body cam footage. All 3 officers had cameras. Hayes's and Cruz's were functioning normally until they entered the cell, then both switched off. Supposedly equipment failure. Let me guess. They switched back on after 18 minutes. Exactly. But Watson, the young one, he's only been on the force 4 years. He's not as careful. His camera stayed on. Faith's heart rate spikes. It recorded? Audio only. Video cut out when they entered the cell. Something about the angle and the interference. But the audio is crystal clear. All 18 minutes. Silence. Then Faith asks the question that matters. What's on it? Hayes saying, let's have some fun. Cruz laughing. The sound of clippers. Your voice once, asking why they're doing this. No answer, just more laughter. Then Hayes at the end, there. Clean. Like it's a joke. Faith closes her eyes. Evidence. Incontrovertible, documented evidence. I'm forwarding it to the DA, Brennan says. This isn't just misconduct anymore. This is criminal. Deprivation of rights under color of law, federal statute. Hayes, Cruz, Watson, all 3 of them are going down. After they hang up, Faith sits in the darkness of her chambers. Outside, the city continues. Cars passing, people living their lives, unaware that something shifted tonight. The hunters just became the hunted. And this is just the beginning. The courthouse is empty at 11 p.m. Just Faith and the silence. She's been sitting in her chambers for 2 hours, reviewing case files she's already reviewed, checking emails she's already answered. Busy work, distraction, anything to avoid going home and seeing the fear in Maya's eyes. Her head still feels strange. 3 weeks now since that night, and she still reaches up instinctively, expecting to find hair. The absence is a constant reminder. Every morning when she showers, every time she catches her reflection, every moment someone's eyes flicker to her head before they remember to look away. The attacks haven't stopped. If anything, they've intensified. Another op-ed this morning. Judge Sullivan's personal crusade undermines public trust. A letter to the editor defending Hayes. I've known Garrett for 15 years. He's a good man, a good officer, being railroaded by someone with an agenda. Faith's phone has been ringing constantly. Reporters, supporters, critics, everyone wanting a statement. She's given none. Let the evidence speak. That's what she keeps telling herself. But evidence doesn't comfort your daughter when she comes home crying. Evidence doesn't stop the whispers in courthouse hallways. Evidence doesn't make you feel less alone when you're sitting in the dark at 11 p.m. wondering if you made the right choice. She thinks about the boy, Jamal. She hasn't thought about him in years, but tonight he's vivid in her mind. 15 years old, arrested 3 blocks from his house for matching a description. The description, black male, medium height, wearing a hoodie. That's it. That's all it took to put a child in the system. Faith was his public defender. Fresh out of law school, assigned the case almost randomly. The evidence was laughable. No witness identification, no physical evidence, nothing except an officer's word that this was the kid. But the officer was confident, testified with absolute certainty, the kind of certainty that comes from never being questioned. It took Faith 6 months. 6 months of motions, investigations, finding the actual suspect, proving Jamal was somewhere else entirely when the crime occurred. 6 months of a child in the system, missing school, scared, convinced the world had decided he was guilty just for existing. When the charges were finally dismissed, Jamal's mother hugged Faith and cried. Thank you for seeing him, for really seeing him. That's why Faith became a judge. Not for the authority or the prestige, for the chance to make sure someone was actually looking, for the precision that separates justice from the mechanical processing of human beings through a system that too often doesn't care about the difference. She pulls out a piece of paper, writes by hand, something she rarely does anymore, but tonight feels like it requires something more deliberate than typing. Dear Judicial Council, I respectfully request an independent review. She's already sent this memo. But writing it again feels necessary. A reminder to herself of why she's doing this. Not for vindication, not for revenge, for accountability. For the women in that holding cell who said nothing happened. For Jamal. For every person who ever trusted that the system might actually work if someone just looked closely enough. At 11:45, she folds the paper, puts it in her desk drawer, stands. The black robe still hangs on the door. She touches it briefly, rough fabric, heavy with meaning. Tomorrow she'll put it on again. Preside over cases, make rulings, do the work. But tonight, she allows herself this: the fear, the doubt, the bone-deep weariness of fighting a battle she might not win. Her phone buzzes. Text from Brennan. Audio file is with D.A. Thomas Green. He's reviewing it tonight. Call you tomorrow. Faith reads it twice, then types back. Thank you. She doesn't know it yet, but Detective Brennan is sitting in her own office at midnight, listening to the audio file one more time before sending it. Brennan has worked internal affairs for 6 years. She's investigated 73 complaints. She's seen the system protect itself over and over. But this time the evidence is too clear, too damning, too impossible to ignore. And D.A. Thomas Green is in his office too, headphones on, listening to 18 minutes of audio that makes his stomach turn. He's a career prosecutor. He knows what deprivation of rights under color of law looks like. He knows this is federal statute territory. He knows that if he moves forward, he'll be declaring war on the department he works with every single day. But he also knows what the right decision is. 3 people, working late into the night in separate buildings, connected by the same case, the same evidence, the same question. Will the system work this time? Tomorrow, they'll find out. The brief arrives on Friday morning. 14 signatures. 14 attorneys, some Faith has worked with, some she's never met, all signing their names to a document that will become public record. Amicus Curiae brief in support of Judge Faith Sullivan, the header reads. The first paragraph. Judge Sullivan has devoted her career to fairness, integrity, and equal justice under law. She deserves no less in return. Faith reads it in her chambers, door closed, and for the first time in 3 weeks, she feels something break loose in her chest. Not quite relief, not quite hope, but something. The signatures represent a cross-section of Riverside County's legal community. Criminal defense attorneys, civil rights lawyers, former prosecutors, law professors. People who disagree on almost everything except this. What happened to Faith Sullivan was wrong, and staying silent about it would be worse. Outside the courthouse, a small group gathers. Not a protest. Nothing angry or confrontational. Just 40 people holding signs. Accountability now. Justice for Judge Sullivan. We stand with you. Thomas, her bailiff, tells her about it during morning recess. Your Honor, you should see this. People want you to know you're not alone. She doesn't go outside, doesn't acknowledge them, but knowing they're there matters more than she expected. Then the others come forward. Morris calls first. Victoria Morris, age 36, arrested 2 years ago for shoplifting, charges later dropped. They shaved my head, she tells Detective Brennan in a recorded statement. Said I had lice. I didn't have lice. I told them I didn't. They did it anyway. Jackson is next. Keisha Jackson, age 28, arrested for alleged drug possession. Evidence later ruled inadmissible. Same thing. Lice protocol. I filed a complaint. Nothing happened. They told me I was making it up. Then Nguyen. Patricia Nguyen, age 41, arrested during a domestic dispute. Later determined she was the victim, not the aggressor. I thought I was the only one. When I saw the news about Judge Sullivan, I realized it's not just me. It's a pattern. 3 women, 3 stories, same officers, same protocol. 6 years of documented abuse that no one connected because the complaints were filed separately, investigated separately, dismissed separately. Graham Ellis publishes a 3-part investigative series in the Chronicle. Part 1. The pattern of complaints against Hayes. Part 2. The sealed settlements and what they reveal about departmental culture. Part 3. The missing 18 minutes of footage and what it means for accountability. The articles are meticulous, sourced, impossible to dismiss as biased reporting. Ellis doesn't editorialize. He just presents the facts, lets them speak. By Wednesday, other media outlets start picking up the story. Not the controversy angle anymore, the evidence angle. A local television station runs a segment. 3 women, same story. Is this a pattern? Faith watches it from her chambers, sees Morris, Jackson, and Nguyen speaking on camera. Their faces, their pain, their courage in coming forward when they could have stayed silent, stayed safe. On Thursday afternoon, the 14 attorneys hold a press conference. The lead speaker is Margaret Chen, a civil rights attorney Faith has known for years. Chen reads from the brief, then adds her own words. This isn't about one judge. This is about whether our system has the integrity to hold itself accountable. We believe it does. We're here to make sure it does. Faith learns about the press conference after it's over, watches the video online. Hears Chen say, Judge Sullivan didn't ask us to do this. She didn't ask for any of this. She just asked for what she's spent her career giving others. A fair process, honest review, and the presumption that evidence matters. That evening, Faith reads through the 3 affidavits: Morris, Jackson, Nguyen. Each one describes the same humiliation, the same powerlessness, the same belief that nothing would ever change. At the end of Nguyen's statement, a single line: "I'm glad Judge Sullivan is fighting back. Someone needed to." Faith thinks, I'm not alone. The women in that holding cell weren't alone. We're all connected by the same system, the same abuse, the same refusal to stay silent. The question is, will anyone listen? Tomorrow they get their answer. Brennan calls at 6 a.m. Faith is already awake, hasn't been sleeping well for weeks. I found it. Brennan's voice shakes slightly. Watson's body cam. The audio is clean. Officer Jake Watson. Badge 2903. 4 years on the force. Young enough to still be nervous around supervisors. New enough that following protocol matters more than protecting colleagues. His body cam stayed on. Faith sits up in bed, fully alert now. What's on it? Everything. Hayes saying, let's have some fun. Cruz laughing. The Clippers. You asking, why are you doing this? No response. Just more laughter. Then Hayes at the end. There. Clean. Like it's a fucking joke. The profanity is uncharacteristic for Brennan, a sign of how much this has affected her too. The metadata? Faith asks. Perfect match. The recording starts at 1852 and runs through 1910, exactly the 18 minutes missing from the cell camera. Someone turned off the cell camera, but they forgot Watson was wearing his. Or they didn't think to check. Or they assumed Watson would delete it. Or they trusted the blue wall of silence would hold. They were wrong. I'm forwarding this to D.A. Green, Brennan says. This isn't internal affairs territory anymore. This is criminal. Faith's mind is already moving through the implications. Federal Statute 18 U.S.C. 242. Deprivation of rights under color of law. Maximum 10 years if bodily injury. 3 officers who thought they were untouchable about to learn they're not. When? Faith asks. Today. Green's been waiting for this piece. Once he has the audio, he can move. They hang up. Faith sits in the early morning darkness of her bedroom. Maya is still asleep down the hall. The house is quiet. Outside, the city is waking up. Traffic increasing, the sun not quite risen, but light starting to creep across the sky. She thinks about the moment in the cell, the Clippers, the laughter. The way Hayes looked at her like she was nothing, no one, just another person he could humiliate without consequence. She thinks about his face in the courtroom when he realized who she was, and now she thinks about what happens when evidence is too clear to ignore, too documented to dismiss, too public to bury. At 3 p.m., D.A. Thomas Green listens to the audio file. Once. Then again. His chief deputy is with him. They both wear headphones. Both hear the same 18 minutes. When it's over, Green removes the headphones slowly, sits in silence for 30 seconds, then picks up his phone. Convene a grand jury. We're moving forward. His deputy starts to speak, probably to warn about the political implications, the department pushback, the union's inevitable response. Green raises a hand. I don't care. Listen to this recording and tell me we have a choice. The deputy listens. When it's finished, he nods. I'll make the calls. By 5 p.m., subpoenas are being drafted. The grand jury will convene in 2 weeks. Hayes, Cruz, and Watson will be called to testify. The evidence will be presented. Dash cam footage, medical reports, personnel files, sealed settlement records, affidavits from Morris, Jackson, and Nguyen, and the body cam audio. 18 minutes of incontrovertible proof. Faith learns about it from Jacob, her attorney. He calls at 6, voice tight with something between relief and disbelief. They're moving forward. Federal charges, civil rights violation. Faith doesn't respond immediately. She's thinking about Jamal, about the 6 months it took to clear his name, about every person who ever trusted the system to work and watched it fail them instead. Good, she says finally. Faith, this is more than good. This is... I know what it is. She does. This is the moment when documentation matters, when receipts become evidence, when patience becomes power, when the system, pushed hard enough by someone who understands exactly how it works, finally does what it's supposed to do. The hunters have become the hunted, and the hunt is just beginning. The grand jury room is closed to the public. No cameras, no reporters, just 23 citizens, a prosecutor, and the evidence. Detective Brennan presents first. Personnel files spread across a table. 6 complaints, 14 years, 0 discipline. The pattern isn't subtle once someone bothers to look. She details the settlements. $85,000 in 2019, $120,000 in 2021. Both excessive force cases, both sealed, both involving the same officers. Then the affidavits. Morris, Jackson, Nguyen. 3 women who didn't know each other, telling the same story about the same protocol that appears nowhere in department policy manuals. The grand jurors listen in silence. Some take notes. Others just stare at the documents, processing what they're seeing. Then Brennan plays the audio. The room goes completely still. No rustling papers, no shifting in seats. Just the sound of Hayes's voice through the speakers. Let's have some fun. The mechanical rhythm of clippers. Faith's voice, once. Why are you doing this? Silence on the recording. Then Cruz laughing quietly. Then Hayes at the end. There. Clean. 18 minutes distilled into moments that tell the entire story. Not he said, she said. Not competing narratives. Just documented proof of what happened in that cell. When the audio stops, the grand jury foreman, a retired teacher in her 60s, has tears running down her face. She doesn't wipe them away. Hayes is called to testify. His attorney advises him to plead the 5th. Hayes refuses. It was protocol, he says. Standard lice prevention. The prosecutor, a 30-year veteran named Richardson, asks simply, "Is laughing part of the protocol?" Hayes hesitates. "I don't know what you're referring to." Richardson plays the audio again. Hayes' own voice, captured by technology he forgot was there. Let's have some fun. Let's have some... That's you, correct? That's taken out of context. The context is you forcibly shaving a woman's head while she sat in handcuffs. What context makes that appropriate? Hayes has no answer. His attorney calls for a recess. It's denied. Cruz testifies next. He's smarter, takes the 5th on every substantive question. But his silence speaks volumes when the audio plays, and the grand jurors hear him laughing. Watson is last, 29 years old, visibly shaking. His attorney has already negotiated immunity in exchange for testimony. Watson tells the truth. Hayes said it was standard procedure. I believed him. I'm new. I should have known better. But you left your body camera on. I forgot to turn it off. We usually turn them off in holding because of privacy concerns. I just forgot. One mistake. One moment of forgetting. One body camera that captured everything. The grand jury deliberates for 90 minutes. The vote is unanimous, 23-0. E2. Indictment. Deprivation of rights under color of law. 18 U.S.C. Year 242. Hayes and Cruz both charged. Watson granted immunity for cooperation. That afternoon, Hayes is arrested at his home. Badge 2834, now evidence. The mugshot shows a different man from the one who stood in that cell 3 months ago. No smirk, no confidence, just fear. Faith learns about the indictment while presiding over afternoon session. Her bailiff hands her a note during recess. She reads it once, folds it, puts it in her robe pocket. Then she returns to the bench and continues her docket. Cases that need fair hearings. People who need justice. The work that made her become a judge in the first place. At 5 p.m., she leaves the courthouse. The news cameras are waiting, but she doesn't stop. Just walks to her car with the same composed expression she's worn for 3 months. Inside the car, alone, she allows herself one moment. Hands on the steering wheel. Eyes closed. Deep breath. Justice isn't personal. It's procedural. And today, the procedure worked. March 12th, 6 months later. United States District Court, Central District of California. The verdict? Guilty. Hayes, 36 months federal prison, 2 years supervised release. Cruz, 18 months probation. Watson testified for the prosecution, kept his immunity, resigned from RCPD 2 weeks after the grand jury. The changes came slower, but they came. RCPD announces new policies. Body cameras mandatory at all times, no exceptions. Internal Affairs oversight transferred to an independent civilian review board. Training on civil rights and de-escalation now required quarterly, not annually. The $2.3 million federal grant gets conditional approval, contingent on continued reform and independent monitoring. Faith Sullivan still presides over courtroom 4B. Her hair has grown back, short and natural, gray showing at the temples. She doesn't hide it. A young defense attorney approaches the bench during morning recess, nervous. "Your Honor, I just wanted to say—" Faith cuts him off gently. "Argue your case. That's all I need." He nods, understanding. This isn't about her. It never was. It's about the system working the way it's supposed to. Slowly, imperfectly, but working. That night, Maya asks, "Was it worth it, Mom? Everything they put you through?" Faith thinks about Morris, Jackson, and Wynne, the women who came forward, the attorneys who signed the brief, Brennan, who kept digging, Ellis, who kept reporting, all the people who refused to accept that this was just how things were. "Yes," she says, "it was worth it." They shaved her head to humiliate her. She responded with evidence, not rage, not revenge, just receipts. And in the end, the only thing that mattered was the record. If this story moved you, leave a comment, share it. Because accountability doesn't happen by accident. It happens when we refuse to look away. Subscribe for more stories where the system works. Not because it's perfect, but because someone fought to make it so. Faith Sullivan still sits on the bench. The robe still fits. And when she looks in the mirror now, she sees exactly who she is. A woman who refused to be erased. And a judge who made the system remember.